Thank you for those who joined. We're just going to wait just one more minute until we have some other participants, and then we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I think we have enough people who have joined to go ahead and start. So thank you all for joining our third day of the Designing Medical Drone Delivery Systems workshop. We're very happy for those of you who stuck with us for now our third day, and thank you. Thanks for joining. We hope that it'll be another great day together. So let's just go ahead and get started with everybody getting on the right interpretation channel again. So for those who would like to listen to English, please go ahead and click the interpretation button in the bottom of your Zoom window on the right side and go to the English channel. And those who would like to listen in French, you can do the same and go on to the French channel. So Olivier, if you don't mind just sharing the same in French.
Bonjour tout le monde, bonjour, bon après-midi, bonsoir. La première chose à faire, comme pour les autres jours, c'est de sélectionner la traduction. Donc, si vous voulez écouter en français, il faut dès maintenant appuyer sur, il faut aller sur l'icône interprétation et sélectionner la langue française pour pouvoir écouter en français. Merci.
All right. So just a reminder for anyone who joined, please go ahead and use the interpretation feature today, either getting onto the English or the French channel. All right, well, for our last day of our workshop, today is going to be our applying day. So we're going to take all of what we've learned on day one, a lot of what we did and we practiced on day two, and now we're going to apply that again to new content today in day three. So we're really looking forward to having some of you bring some of your work to share with the group and taking these great learnings and really cementing them today in the concepts that we've learned over at the workshop. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to start with just a quick introduction and a small recap again. And then we're going to have one of our colleagues, Pasil from UNICEF Namibia, introduce his case study that group one will be working through today on an actual drone delivery project that is currently in process right now in the planning and conceptualization stage. Then we're going to do our same mock system design workshop that we did on day two and run through that again in our small groups, depending on which group you selected at the end of day two on Tuesday. We'll again have just a short break after we're done and come back for the discussion. So again, what we'll ask from you today is if you could please provide your full attention. We've already are on our attend all 3 days, so thank you for those of you who've done that. During our small groups, if it's possible to turn on your video, we would love to be able to see you, to interact with you. Please stay muted unless you're called on. If you would like to speak during our discussion period, or if you have any questions, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and you can unmute and come off and talk to the group. When we are in our discussion, if you could please speak slowly for our interpretation. And then if you would like to just share your thoughts via the chat, you can go ahead and do that as well. And a reminder that this will be recorded, our beginning of our session and the end of our session, not the small group work in the middle. And it will be available to you next week via email and also online at our website, updog.org next week. So let's get started with just a short recap of what we did on Tuesday together in day 2. And on Tuesday, we really focused on taking all of those concepts from day 1 and applying them in a system design workshop. And we walked through what decisions need to be made during that planning stage at a system design workshop in order to optimize your supply chain for drone deliveries. So the first primary question is, where are the drone sites? Which sites will you prioritize for drone delivery? Which sites are good choices for drone delivery? And what makes that site a good choice for drone delivery? The second question is, what assets and infrastructure are needed at those sites, or maybe at your drone hub or for a battery recharging station? Where do you need those assets and infrastructure, and how do you plan for the future in order to resupply them if they break? The third is, what products, what health products or other items will the drone carry to and from each of those sites that you selected? We've really focused a lot on understanding how big of a process that is around prioritizing which products go to which places and what stakeholders are needed to be involved in order to have that prioritization exercise. We also talked about how the drones will fit into the existing system. How will they augment or replace other delivery modes? And how frequently will those drones augment or replace those other delivery modes? What triggers those flights to happen? What actually happens on that day that a drone is happening? What are the protocols that you need to put in place so that you can operate the drone, both from the flight side and the flight operations protocols that may be more so the responsibility of the drone service provider or the employees who are flying the drone, but also from the health system side. What protocols do you need to put in place for ordering, for delivery receipts, for how you handle those health products? And also from the aviation side, potentially with regulators, what kind of protocols need to be put in place so that you can comply with regulations? And what reporting protocols do you need? How will data move through the system? And how will you ensure that that data chain doesn't get interrupted with drone deliveries? And then how will you engage the communities where drone operations will take place? What's your strategy for that? Who is best placed to do that? And finally, how will you measure your success? So these were the key decisions that need to be made when you're in that planning stage with your stakeholders, and what we ran through that Miro board with. So today we're going to be working through these decisions again for most of us through either a new case study from our colleagues at UNICEF Namibia, or if you have some of your own work that you wanted to bring to the table and work through some of these issues and ideate with one of our facilitators, you'll get the opportunity to do that. Or if you wanted to revisit the day 2 Miro, if you were in one of the groups that didn't get so far, you can also have the opportunity to do that in group 2. So from here, we're going to dive right into our case study that we're going to be having from our colleagues at UNICEF Namibia. And so I'll actually ask our colleague Pasil to come on the line and introduce this case study to all of you. So Pasil, if you are on one of the interpretation channels, just a reminder to please turn that off so that the interpreters can hear you and interpret for our French colleagues. And I'll have you go ahead and come on and get started with the case study.
Good afternoon. This is Pasil again from UNICEF Namibia. I'm here to present for you a case studies for one of our medical drones network implementation. Next page. Yeah, so this is a last mile delivery drone system for to deliver cold chain and non-cold chain of medical commodities. This is in partnership with the Namibia Institute of Pathology and John Hopkins University Medical Drones Department, trying to deliver to actually implement this system and complement the in-country logistics network for the NIP. Next page. So Namibia is a sparsely populated country. We a large country with only about 2.2 million, 2.6 million inhabitants, and with 14 regions. And our focus this time around is on one of the regions called Zambezi region. It has a population of about 90,000 people. And with 57% of these people living in rural areas. It has a tropical climate, so it is a rainy. The rainy season begins usually in December to March, and because of the climate and the weather in the area, there's two major rivers actually pass through the region and causing flooding during these rainy periods. Most of the roads that are actually leading to these facilities we're trying to implement are closed off for about 6 months. Bad roads, only accessible with 4-wheel drives or by boats. And also most of that area is actually outside of the cellular coverage. Next. Next, okay. So we have challenges, as I mentioned, transporting. We currently, the current supply systems only allow it to transport samples once a week, at most two times. And these clinics are offering diagnostic services only on some days of the week. And the road infrastructure is cut off, as I mentioned. And it's a multi-mode transportation system that basically you go by roads, and in the picture you can actually see a road flooded, and if that road is inaccessible, then there is a scheduled boat that will actually take the commodities to the facilities. Next. So yeah, we took some of the health facilities and prioritized them for delivery. There are many others in the area, but these are the ones that we're focusing in. Kanono, which is about 57 kilometers. Kanono is one of those actually that it's only basically most of the time is only bad roads, not really a lot of flooding. But from Shukmansberg, which is 57 kilometers away from the main lab, which is in the Katima Mulilo District Hospital, Itomba 69 kilometers away, Mbalasinta 85, and Impalila 100 kilometers. These are actually cut off at most during flooding and also as bad roads. Next. So the health products that are being taken currently, there is laboratory samples. These are blood samples, but also saliva samples, and I think the urine samples. We also intend to co-opt medical supplies as well as vaccines into the delivery system. So the specification of the drone for the delivery in this area is a VTOL system. That there's a payload capacity of 3 kilograms. But we know that the mass volumes of those, the mass volume of that compartment could be 5.5. The minimum range or when round trip range for the drone actually is 120 kilometers, including takeoff and landings. There is a temperature control compartment incorporated into the drone with a 2 degrees Celsius to 8 throughout the flight. Can maintain those temperatures. It can do cellular as well as satellite connectivity. It is battery powered. It has a maximum speed of 130 kilometers per hour. So basically at the health facilities, the handling of the products can be unloaded and loaded by trained health workers, and they're able to then signal for the drone to head back. Yeah. Can we next page?
Yeah, that's it. Actually, that's our last slide.
Yeah, so that's the last slide. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pasiel, for this great introduction and for being willing to share your case study with us today and to work through some of these ideas with you. So for those of you that selected group 1, you'll be walking through the same Miro board with Pasiel and with some of our facilitators and working through this case study, which is actually quite interesting. There seems to be a lot of similarities to the case study that we shared on day 2, with a lot of roads cut off due to water and really remote and limited connectivity. So very, very interesting that there's some similarities popping up and might have some clues about where drones may be a good choice for drone delivery or in these certain situations. But so yeah, we're going to go back through the Miro and do the same thing. And then for group 2, we'll go through the Miro again too, but using the case study from day 2. And then group 3 will just kind of be free discussion with our facilitators. So for groups 1 and groups 2, you'll get we'll go back to the Miro. And if Sierra, if you could put the link to the Miro in the chat, it's the same one as we used the other day. And you can scroll through, your facilitators can also show you, there's now a day 2 section for those of you who are in group 1 that you can scroll to and get to your Miro board. And then for those of us in group 2, I will instruct you about where to scroll if you join. And then we'll just walk through the same steps like we did the other day. And just a reminder that if you'd like to go through and actually work on the Miro board, you can just use your mouse to drag either sticky notes or icons around and take some notes and share your thoughts that way. So these will be our facilitators for each of the groups today. So Rachel, we can go ahead and split out into the groups. And if we have, maybe we might just need a 1 minute. I see a couple people are adding which group they'd like to be in. So please bear with Rachel as she makes these last minute changes to our breakout groups.
Yeah, Gabo, can I just come in here and ask if people want to change the group, or if they weren't assigned, if they weren't here at the end of day 2, should they just write what group they want in the chat and then Rachel can put them in there, or what should they do? Yeah,
it looks like most people have been doing that. And I think a lot of people already put their group from, it looks like the number of people that we have today on at the poll. So I think Rachel has already been sorting those people out into their groups.
Great. And then can you just clarify for the group that's going through the Miro board from Tuesday, it'll just be one group, right? So they won't necessarily be going through the Miro that they were working on Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. But it sounds like both of the teams were kind of at the same place. So hopefully it will be pretty smooth to just head on from there where we all left off.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. All right, Rachel, so we can split out into our groups. We'll be there for about 1.5 hours, and we'll come back when we are done and have a bit of a break and a discussion.
Sounds good. Here we go.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I think we still have a couple of breakout rooms going, so hang out for a minute and we'll wait for those folks to join us.
Hello, everyone. Looks like we are still getting the rest of the group back, so we'll just give it another 30 seconds until we have everybody back in the main session. Rachel, does it look like, I'm not sure if you can see if everybody looks like they're back from the breakout rooms? I'm not sure how many total participants we have now.
We have 9 seconds until people can leave the breakout group or have to leave the breakout group.
All right, I'll give it another 15 seconds then. Thanks.
You should be good now, though. Everyone should be back.
All right. Well, great. Yeah, we're going to take a little bit of a break now, everyone. So we're doing pretty well on time. So I think we can do even a 15-minute break. So why don't we all come back at 20 minutes after the hour, and then we will have our final discussion together. All right, so we will just leave you there and we will see you all back in 15 minutes. Thanks, everyone. Rachel, can you put us into our facilitator breakout group, please?
Oh, that's right.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. We will come back from our break now. So I will just give everyone a minute or so to come back, and then we will go ahead and get started on our discussion. All right, I'll just make sure that a couple people are back, and let's just do a quick check-in with the facilitators. If you all are back from break, just go ahead and put put your video on. I'll just double check that you're here. All right, cool. So it looks like most of us are here, which is great. And we're going to spend the next about 15-20 minutes just having a little bit of a discussion with the group. We'll do a quick check-in with just each of the groups and have them share, your key takeaways from your time together, or if you have any key takeaways from day 2 that have interwoven into what your group talked about today. So we'll just do that for about 5 minutes each for each of the groups. So let's start with group 1, which was the group going through UNICEF Namibia's case study. And Joni and Taudis, if you want to maybe go ahead and get us started, and then see if some folks from your group want to join and share their comments.
Thanks, Gabo. I'm gonna just warn Pasil that it would be really great if you could just share a little bit about your thoughts coming out of that session and how it's affected your thinking about the Namibia project. And I'll give you a minute to think before handing over. We went through all the frames in the mural board and had some really good discussion. Thanks everyone who was involved in that group for bringing a lot of energy and thoughtfulness. And we talked, starting with talking about the drone setup, and in Namibia's case, it does look like they're going to need a way to remotely charge the drones. And so thinking about how you would position chargers for the drones and how you would design your system for that sort of a setup and what you would need. And it is interesting how many of the different frames in that mural board, that the steps are iterative. And so, for example, we were talking about frequency of delivery, and then later when we were talking about the infrastructure and the assets, in order to know how many drones you need, you really need to also be thinking about what the frequency of delivery is. So there's a lot of codependencies between those different steps that we talked about a little bit. But I'd love to pass over now to Pasil if you're willing to share a little bit about your impressions coming out of that session.
Yeah, it was really helpful. I shared this with the group as well, that it was quite helpful for us to understand what it really takes to design these networks, these drone networks. And I think what from the get-go, I think what became clear is that having sufficient data for you to make those decisions is very, very important. I mean, we had some data missing in that Excel sheet that had all the facilities and what's the infrastructure at the facilities, and that sometimes puts you. It doesn't give you enough information. You don't have enough information basically to make some critical decisions, like what are the commodities that your facilities are consuming mostly, because that determines what they need, where they need, the frequency of flights, how you're going to schedule the flights to those areas, and the infrastructure needed at those clinics. So that became very clear, and I think this is where site assessments and scoping is very important to do that before. and that gives you a lot of information. But I think also having the expertise so your stakeholders before designing these networks was clear that you really have to have a broad range of experts sometimes that are at least related to the supply chain, whether it's supply chain, whatever other services you're trying to render using this technology. I think they have to be on the table because they give you a lot of insights which you would not be aware. We even had discussions of what is the medical levels, medical facility levels in Namibia, what's a health center compared to a clinic, all those discussions for you to really understand what kind of services are being delivered at those facilities. So I think having this broad range of expertise and understanding and is really important. So increasing that stakeholders helping you design that network, I think, is very critical.
You're on mute, Joni.
Thanks. I was just thanking Hasil for his thoughts. And I think that's been about 5 minutes, so we can pass back to you, Gabo.
Yeah, or if anyone else from your group has a burning comment that they would like to make, I think we can spare another minute or two if anyone from your group wants to raise your hand.
Let me see who's else.
Any other reflections from our group, from our discussion? Anything that surprised you or that you're going to take away as something to apply in your own context? Again, thanks to everyone for really great discussion and engagement. They really appreciate it.
All right, well,
I think we are good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's go to my group. I had group 2, and we had a small group. It was just 4 of us, which was wonderful. And we revisited the day 2 Miro and the case study because some of the other groups didn't make it as far. So Karen and Shitu, I'd love to hear from you and just kind of get your key takeaways from our discussion.
All right, thank you, Gabriela. I think we really had an insightful discussion, and this really goes into the nitty-gritties of planning to do drone deliveries, because most times you may be thinking it's actually a simple thing. If you agree with the Ministry of Health, you're good to go. You don't look into the health facilities, the people you should work with. So, and also from the mirror, all the steps down, the different details that we should look at in order to be able to execute this drone delivery successfully. So I think it was really a great discussion, like you already said, Gabriela, and also the insight from Ruchi, who has actually done this before. She really had very insightful input, which is really, really good. So I'll let my colleague Shitu add on to that.
Yeah, so to add on to that, what Karen was talking about, we are both drone pilots, and seeing this process, how it actually works, who needs to be talked to, who needs to be considered priority, is actually a good thing for us to see, because you want to consider that who are those that are really, really key people in making your decisions. And going through that with Gabriela exposes and tell us more details what we are not even looking at before, so which is a good deal. And the fact that you have to consider your key people, the federal civil aviation, the community leaders, because they are those people that actually make decision on whether you're going to have and we kind of enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. And I think it really, like, if there's one key takeaway to come out of these days together, it's just the complexity of drone operations may be the biggest takeaway. So that's great. Thank you. Dr. Rishi, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, Gabriela, I think I've been to so many workshops on different things. One side, it's like human-centered design, another is about complex system management, and another is the drone systems itself. this particular workshop has all the three integrated so beautifully, and I'm so glad that I've been a part of it. And like, I'm very, very thankful to all of you to put this all together in such a nice and systematic manner. And the biggest takeaway for me from this workshop was just there are so many small things that we all need to take care of. It's not just about a drone comes, a drone brings something and drops and it flies away. It's not just that. It's way more than that. Probably the whole story revolves around just taking the pictures of the drones flying, and the whole media attention goes in that. But then the backdrop of everything, like exactly how many deliveries are you making, what exactly are you carrying, whom are you really serving, what impact are you creating? Those are the key questions which have to be the starting point as well as the end point of the entire process. They should be the showstoppers, not the drone itself. And that's my biggest takeaway from this.
Great, thank you. Thanks to everyone. I'm glad to hear that, and thanks for the great feedback so far. Taudis, did you have anything else to add? Are you okay now because you lowered your hand?
Yeah, I was just wondering. I was not sure where Karen and her colleague is coming from, and I wondered if they saw kind of because they are drone pilots. I wondered if they see the demand in their own countries. And I don't know which country you are from, but like from the knowledge that you have today, maybe you could say after this workshop if there is a potential for drone delivery in your country or context where you are at.
We are in Nigeria, though I am Ugandan, but in Nigeria, working in Nigeria. And I think, yes, there's a lot of potential in Africa generally to use this drone delivery, of course, for medicines and other items that will be necessary. And of course, this workshop has helped us open our eyes on what the extremities would be and what other considerations to put into place when we are either bidding for these projects, or if as a company want to go ahead and establish our own drone delivery services. So it has been very, very insightful. Shitu, if you may add something.
Yeah, I'll just say that, yeah, we are both in Nigeria at the moment. And as she said, Nigeria is a huge country. So if you have this sort of facility that you can actually deliver medical products from southern part to northern part, that you can serve at least people of like population 40 million that do not have access to these vaccines or medical products in general in time. So that would be a good thing to do. At the moment, we don't have such platform in Nigeria. So any platform that could bring this to Nigeria would be appreciated. And we are drone pilots. So if we would like to take this discussion further, we are available to such discussion.
Great, thanks to both of you. And yeah, great question, Taudis. All right, Ashley, let's turn it over to your group 3, who just had kind of one-on-one discussion with Ashley and open discussion about other random things that have to do with drone delivery.
Well, actually, yes, we managed to fill up our time and covered a lot of different topics. The conversation meandered all over the place, from the type of drone fuel that you want to eat, fuel versus battery-based drones and benefits and disadvantages of each. We talked about stakeholder identification, building a business case. I mean, so many different topics. I'm going to go ahead and I've asked a couple folks if they would be willing to speak. So we had a Bebe in our group who was representing Liberia and had a really interesting sort of use case about what they're planning in Liberia. So what were your thoughts and impressions, or what did you take away from that long conversation?
All right, thank you, Ashley. Yes, it was a very helpful discussion with Ashley and the team. So I had the opportunity to present to the team the case of Liberia. Shortly, the case was we are at a kind of conceptualization phase in Liberia that the government is also convinced and wants to take on drone projects to solve transportation problems in the country. So one of a couple of major takeaways as Liberia that I took from the discussion is one of the proposals from the government was to have a drone operation center or operation hub in Monrovia, the capital, which is far away from the counties or the areas we want to transport vaccines, as far as 350 kilometers to 600 plus. So from the discussion I had in the group, there is a need to reconsider this proposal as the available drone technology so far may not be easy to operate in such a far distance, and we may need to create a couple of hubs before delivering to the final destination. So yes, and it's also related to safety issues operating drone for those far areas to 306 and 600 kilometers. That's one thing. The other thing was, apart from Ministry of Health, we were aware that we need to involve Civil Aviation Authority in Liberia to know the existing regulations regarding drone usage for transportation of medicines and others. So what I've learned from the group and facilitators is, for sure, there will be a long list of stakeholders in addition to civil aviation, like Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Defense, and even more, like 10, 20 stakeholders from experience in another country. So in relation to this, my final takeaway is to start with civil aviation, but also to have a series of design workshops to involve all stakeholders and other requirements for this project. That's all from me, Ashley. Over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your context as well from Liberia, because it raised really good discussion in our group. I'm also going to ask Postar in our group to share a reflection or two that you had from the discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, so for me, I think so my context is from a local capacity building perspective, right? So I'm with UNICEF Malawi with the African Drone and Data Academy, and my interest in joining Group 3 was, trying to get input and feedback on the potential relationship, specifically, I think, with private sector engagement, right? So one of the things we are kind of grappling with is we want, so it's about like trying to build a funnel or a pipeline of, we've got the graduates who have the capacity developed through the academy, but then also trying to get an incubator attached to that in terms of then how do we help them start creating opportunities and, develop a vibrant ecosystem. So one of the questions that I had put forward was around what would others think is the relationship between, open source platforms and the sustainability of private drone operators, right? Because trying to think about in the long run, if all of this would be open source, how would they then be able to still sustain themselves in the long run? So some of my key takeaways from that were that, and I think one of the things maybe that we need to look at is how do we better disseminate and share the successes that are happening with drones, for example, in order to drum up more interest and appetite and support from private sector, right? So I gave the example of, for example, when I reflected a bit more as well around how, if you look at the general incubation and business acceleration space in Malawi, it's gotten a lot more international attention, but at the same time, the things that are getting attention weren't really feasible for a lot of investors a few years back. But as they've got to learn, how this is benefiting people and the potential that it has, there's been a lot more appetite also developed in that. So I think that's something that we could be looking at in the long run. And then also around, I think, a lot has been said about the different stakeholders, etc. And I think what I kind of got to thinking about is, as an ecosystem, I guess, grows older, it seems like there are phased layers of who will be primary stakeholders or people to engage with, right? So, I mean, for example, if I look at it, I mean, it's not perfect or anything, but for example, the engagement of, let's say, the Ministry of Health and the Department of Civil Aviation here in Malawi is at the humanitarian drone testing corridor in Kasungu is actually quite encouraging. But as we move along and some of this stuff become a lot more embedded and a lot more kind of accessible to a lot more people, and I mean, it's still going to be dynamic, but once we have the kind of right parameters in place, then the stakeholders who we're going to spend a lot more time trying to engage with might shift directions towards being, you know, more towards private sector, for example, or more towards you know, different types of funding and support mechanisms for being able to stimulate the ecosystem going forward. So I think all in all, my big takeout is kind of there is always going to be a different mix of players, and I think we constantly have to be thinking long term. And in that process, I think that kind of will determine what are some of the foundations that we set at this point in time. Thank you. Over.
That was all beautifully put, and you covered a lot of ground there. And we really appreciate your experience. One thing you just sparked for me, and then we'll see if anyone else has comments from the group, but you reminded me of our discussion around the importance of telling your story and making sure when you speak about cost that you're also talking about value. Everybody wants to know about cost and impact, rather, is the word I was looking for. Everyone wants to know about cost, and it is important to track that, but any discussion of cost needs to be really married to discussion of impact and understanding that the goal isn't always the lowest price possible, but to make the biggest impact possible. And so those have to be considered together. So anyone else from the group? I'll just open it up. Have we missed anything, or do you want to share any other major takeaways? It was, we covered quite a lot. Dumi, go ahead.
All right, thank you. For me, I think the key takeaways were around how can local drone startups actually collect the right type of data that other organizations can benefit from. So through the discussions, I realized that we need to align ourselves with most local stakeholders and see where our interests are able to align, while at the same time, we need to create great relationships with stakeholders like the civil aviation, which we already have like good relationship, and be able to fly as much in order to prove consistency, safety, and just collect as much data as we can. So I think it has been a great learning point in such way.
Thank you, Dumi. Really appreciate your perspective as well. Would anyone else from our group like to comment? I think another thing is just that we covered so much ground and there is so much more to cover that we ended up pointing back again and again to the Updog resource library. And I want to make sure, I'm sure you'll be sharing that, Gabo, after the call, or probably did before anyway. But just to make sure that people know that in that resource library, there is an incredibly rich collection of tools, reports. Look at me getting ahead of ourselves. And it just sparked a lot of conversation that we couldn't cover everything in an hour and a half, but we were able to point to certain documents and say there's much more going on here. So I hope you all can use that.
Yeah, definitely. And we will create kind of a list of some of these resources that exist already that are in this resource library, because this resource library is pretty huge now. It has like over 150 resources in it. So we'll curate a bit of those resources that are attached to each of those phases and send that out with the post-workshop materials for you all, because there's tons of materials that are available here that hopefully will be really helpful for you all. One thing that I wanted to ask about the conversation that Abebe was talking about with stakeholders is that, did you all discuss the role that drone commissions can play at a country level and a national level, and how different how you can organize stakeholders together to collaborate so that it's not, the responsibility of one organization to run around to 10, 20, 30 different stakeholders and do that all on their own? Oh, you're on mute, Ashley.
There we go. I went on camera and not off mute. So we really focused on the iterative role of identifying stakeholders and shared experiences, and how surprisingly difficult it is to identify all stakeholders, and that it takes time for people to come out of the weeds, especially in countries that don't have as much experience with drones. Because people may not have thought through every stakeholder that needs to be involved, and so they come forward over time. But to your point, we really didn't cover that much, and I know there are other folks on the call that may have something to say about that, but maybe you could elaborate a little more, since no, we really didn't cover that.
Yeah, I know that at least in Malawi, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Village Reach and many other partners on this call, UNICEF as well too, had a big role to play in forming a drone commission in Malawi that sits at the national level. That really is the primary body that coordinates across sectors, across ministries, on drones around the country. And it's really been fundamental in accelerating the use of drones in Malawi, I think, and really creating a space for this vibrant drone community to be built. And we've done the same thing as Village Reach and DRC to help the national level and the provincial level even form drone commissions, because in a country like DRC, it has a very devolved government. So the provincial level has a lot of power as well too. And actually the governor of the province is on the drone commission as well. And so forming these groups, these kind of technical working groups and advisory panels, can be one really helpful way when you're have identified who those stakeholders are, to coordinate amongst them, and maybe having quarterly meetings to get their advice, to help them move things along for approvals, understanding the regulatory process, and just to provide feedback on how drone programs are going as well too, and being like a dissemination mechanism for your results as well, is a one way that has been at least successful in Malawi and DRC. And I'm sure other countries may have similar groups as well. Yeah, and I'll add in the resources. There's the technical working group in Malawi actually produced a document about flying drones in Malawi for drone service providers and people coming to the country. So I'll make sure to share that in the resources after the webinar.
Bebe, did you want to comment there as well? You're welcome to.
Yes, I want to say thank you, Gabo. Priorly, we were just hoping that we can handle this under the existing National Logistics Working Group for immunization. But I understand from your experience in other areas, this is going to be a complex project, and this drone commission will be a kind of a body that will coordinate across sectors if the country needs to use a drone even for other purposes. So and that will give us a good hint again that we have to take this initiative up and inform our major stakeholder, Ministry of Ministry of Health, and then even regarding the first point you pointed out regarding stakeholders, if we can push for this drone commission strategy instead of keeping it under the logistics working group, for which the the capacity and the scope of logistics working group may be limited to handle this complex issue of drone, which concerns a lot of stakeholders, as we have already discussed. So that will be another takeaway from our team. Thank you so much.
Of course. Taudis, did you want to chime in?
Just a quick one. I think Abebe made a great point about the National Logistics Working Group. And I think where possible, we could aim to build on the existing structures that well align with what is missing a lot of times in the drone space, alignment with the traditional budget lines for logistic services. I think this is, building on the logistics working group and actually then identifying the need for maybe a larger stakeholder platform is the way to go, as opposed to creating another drone group just for the sake of creating. I think logistics group itself warrants a very useful starting point and an entry point. Over.
Yeah, that's a great point, Taudis. Well, I'll leave it open if we have any final comments from anybody else. And if not, we will go ahead and wrap up a little bit early for today. I can let you all go about 5 minutes early. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you who stuck with us for our 9th hour of content this week. I know it was long, but I really hope that you got a lot out of this time together. I know that I did. I think we had really fruitful conversations and really happy that you all joined us. And a big thank you to our facilitators, our tech facilitators, our interpreters, and our facilitators that help coordinate this as well. I really appreciate all of the work that you have done to put on this really great event. So thank you, huge thank you to everyone. And I will put in a plug that we do have a survey that Sierra just put in the chat. We will also send it out after next week with the email with all of the resources. So if you want to let us know how we did, we would love to hear from you. And something particularly that I would like to hear from all of you is, would you like to do something like this again? Did you think it was useful enough that maybe there's other topics that you would like to cover in a workshop like this that we could put on, maybe even in person someday if COVID would allow. So would love to hear from all of you on this survey and get your feedback. And then my last plug that I will make is that if you aren't already a member of our UAV for Payload Delivery Working Group, I would really encourage you to join so that you can join our listserv and our mailing list to get more updates on future events. We do quarterly webinars that are normally just an hour in length, so much shorter than this special event. But if you would like to be invited to those in the future, please go to our website and you can join to get onto our listserv. And then as Ashley already mentioned, we have the resource library. So just one more plug for that. All of the recordings from this, the materials and the printouts of the Miro boards and the slides will be available in this resource library next week. We'll also send it by email. So if you lose that email, you want to come back and revisit the slides, check out our resource library for that. The Miro board will also be open for probably about another week, and then I'll shut it down. So if you want to go back into the Miro, review, make any more comments, you're welcome to do so. And that's it, everyone. So thank you again for joining. It's been really wonderful getting to know all of you and spending these last 9 hours this week together. And so hope this won't be the last time that we all speak, and looking forward to seeing you at our next events. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Great having you.
Yes, thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.